I decided it was a time to come to California. So I went to California, and I moved in the valley, and things weren't going very, very well there. As a matter of fact, I had to go out and try to sell my dog because it was either do that or he just was not going to be very well fed around the house. And then one night, I went to see Muhammad Ali fight Chuck Wepner. And what I saw was pretty extraordinary. I saw a man they called the Bayonne Bleeder, who didn't have a chance at all against, the greatest fighting machine, supposedly, that ever lived.
Brought it back, slips a punch to his left. Oh! Vicious shot to the rib from Muhammad Ali, and what a surprise! Chuck Wepner gets to the body.
And for one brief moment, this supposed stumblebum turned out to be magnificent in the fact that he lasted and knocked the champion down. I said, boy, if this isn't a metaphor for life. His entire life crystallized at that moment. He will be remembered for all eternity, at least among the fight fans. He did something extraordinary. I said, now that is probably what I need as a catalyst for an idea. A man who's going to stand up to life and take one shot and maybe go the distance. So I started to write. And it was one of those writing frenzies. And 3 days later, I came up with the script of Rocky. Now, the script by no means was a finished piece of material. It was probably about 90 pages, and maybe 10% of it remained in the final script, but it was done. Originally in Rocky, the film was very, very dark because filmed at that time, the anti-hero was, I guess, the favored kind of character of the day. And I pretty much wrote the original one to be like that. The character was very dark. As a matter of fact, he throws the fight at the very end, and Mickey himself turns out to be this very angry, racist man. And the reason actually Rocky throws the fight because he didn't want to be involved in this kind of world. He said, I'd rather be who I was and to just have all this hatred around me and so on. I remember showing it to my wife. She goes, oh, I don't like it. Rocky seems so nasty, so this, so that. Because I had made him very, very street-like and unrepentant. He didn't have the kind of attitude that eventually he ended up with. So I went back and rewrote and rewrote and rewrote. I first met Bob Chardoff and Irwin Winkler, and I believe I was there on a casting call. So we're talking a little bit, and I guess I really wasn't right for the acting part. And on the way out, I said, oh, I don't know if it matters, but I do a little bit of writing. He goes, really? I said, yeah, I'm writing this story. I have this thing about wrestlers, and I might do something about boxing. Well, he says, well, bring it around. And I thought, if I hadn't stopped on the way out, that's why I tell all actors or writers, don't give up. Keep talking. Eventually, you might hit a nerve somewhere, and they go, come on back. And if they didn't say, come on back, or bring it later and let's see what you've developed, I wouldn't be sitting here. So I have to give incredible credit to their insight and their patience, and they're willing to take a chance, which it doesn't exist much anymore, unfortunately. Originally, when I brought the script to them, they were fairly enthusiastic about it. The one thing they were not enthusiastic about was me playing the part, and I really can't blame them. At the time, Ryan O'Neal was a candidate, Burt Reynolds, Robert Redford, Jimmy Caan, and they all, were at the top of their game. And so I could see it, but there was something inside of me that this opportunity is never going to come around. And I really wasn't used to money, and I had no idea of what I would be missing. But the temptation started to come forward. First, it was $25,000, then $100,000. I never heard of $100,000 because I had like $106 in the bank, and like I said, I had to sell my dog, and things were not looking very, very good. My $40 car had just blown up, so I was taking a bus to work. But still, it didn't matter. I wanted to stick with it. Then it went up to $150,000, $175,000, and it went up to $250,000. Now my head was starting to spin, and it went up to $330,000, and probably I heard it went up to $360,000. And I thought, all right, you've really managed poverty very well. You've got this down to a science. You really don't need much to live on. I had like sort of figured it out. So I was not in any way used to the good life. So I thought, you know what? If I know in the back of my mind, if I sell this script and it does very, very well, I'm going to jump off a building. And if I'm not in it, there's no doubt about it, I'm going to leap in front of a train. I'm going to be very, very upset. So this is one of those things where you just roll the dice and you fly by the proverbial seat of your pants. Say, all right, I got to try it. I got to just do it. I may be totally wrong, and I'm going to be taking a lot of people down with me, but I just believe in it. We didn't have really the money to shoot a normal union film at that time in Philadelphia, so we would travel in a van. I would jump out of the van, and we were working with the handheld camera at the time with Garrett Brown, and it was somewhat experimental. And he'd film me running through shopping malls and up down the steps and flights, curved corridors along the river, until finally my legs basically gave out and I'm like writhing on the ground, and I want to rise up and say, John, I'm dying here. And he goes, no, use it. Use the pain. I said, for what? I mean, I'm in misery. He goes, well, no, you know, it's giving your character, it's giving him some depth. I said, it's giving me bruises. It's giving me like agony. I can't sleep at night. But, you know, John would use, one thing about John, he would use the environment. If he saw, like the scene where we just jumped down and saw this ship along the dock, this docked along the pier, and he said, just jump out, run as fast as you can along the ship, and I'm running and running. I said, you know what, my legs are buckling. I'm literally gonna crash down here. Teeth are gonna go, jaw, face. I'm just gonna be ground down to this flat-faced image. Please. And I just barely made it, because John he would have me run and jump park benches and down streets, and people are throwing things at me. Like when I had the orange thrown at me, and these people had no idea who I was. I was just some strange alien invader in a well-worn, tattered, baggy, incredibly ugly sweatsuit running through their neighborhood, you know, and they're like throwing things at me. And we kind of like made it work, but actually it was like, I thought they were trying to hit me with the orange. There was a kind of a lot of injuries on the set. I remember I was doing running up and down the steps. Originally, I was supposed to run up and down the steps with butt kiss to show how strong Rocky had become. The first time he could barely get up the steps, and then I started picking up the dog, and halfway up the steps, I said, this is a bad idea. The dog weighed about 135 pounds. I said, and there's no way I could run gracefully up the steps, more or less. I couldn't even stagger up the steps, so the dog was definitely cut out. But in the meantime, I had gotten a wicked case of shin splints, which is an old injury I had gotten from playing high school football. And then when I was hitting the meat, I thought, this would be an interesting visual, hitting the meat. Well, I don't know if anyone's hit a bull lately. They're hard. They're real hard. So all my knuckles are flattened out. They just became, I guess, kind of like, well, I don't know what they're good for anymore. I guess, you know, kind of like a table leg now. They're pretty flat, they're pretty even. They really don't function as a hand much anymore. But these are all somewhat of the memories of, and the broken finger that I was using with Adrian. I said, okay, I'll just like take all the injuries in the movie and somehow work it in. Also in the movie, there was, we couldn't afford many people, so I tried to get as much help from friends, from my brother who plays a street corner singer, and my father who's a bell ringer. As I said, my dog is in it. Even my wife, my first wife, was the set photographer, but I think she shot a total of maybe 100 pictures because the budget was really, really tight. And actually, it was probably the best set photographer I've had in a long time because all those pictures are great.